hippie music.
I can see her husband.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
They just, yeah. They went with Clark, with Mr. Brown and his wife.
Really?
Yeah. Remember, but they are, and now, do you wanna text her? Or do you want me to?
All right, we will call this meeting of the County of Benton City School District number 52 to order. Will you please join for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Do you have any updates, modifications?
Yes. A few actually. So the first thing that we need to do is go down to item number 5, proposed consent agenda. And then go all the way down to item L, which is a leave of absence. Please move that into the resignation. You should have received a notice we received it over the weekend and then forwarded it, that the person, Cassie Spies, who requested the leave of absence has since just made her resignation. So she moves into that.
Okay.
Also under resignations, I forwarded to the board about 45 minutes ago. Our high school life skills teacher, Jeanette Perales, has resigned. And she was offered a position at an elementary school, which is more, quite frankly, it's more up her alley. So I totally understand it. So we're going to go ahead and release her.
All right.
Then this is a little more complicated. I think what we should do is just make this item under number 8, new business, item F. Levy committee pro and con approval. And I'll explain that more when we get to it. But I think that's the best way to put it on the agenda.
Okay. Anything else? Any comments or questions on the agenda? I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Amended agenda.
Excuse me, for the amended agenda as amended. Yep.
I will second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, well, moving on to delegations, Mr. Peterson.
No delegations this evening, Mr. Skipper.
All right, with that, we will move on to the proposed consent agenda. Do we have any comments or questions on the consent agenda?
I don't have any.
Good.
Motion to approve the proposed consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
If I can take it 30 seconds. I want to acknowledge Mr. Keithon Fleming, who's here. Keithon will be assuming the role of athletic director. This is new for County of Benton City School District because this is not an administrative position. This is a certificated position. So Keithon will be teaching 2 classes and then acting as a certificated athletic director for the rest of the time. So that means he's not going to have some of the vice principal duties until he decides to go ahead and get those credentials at some point in his future, which he and I will talk about. But I'm excited. Kids are excited. I think it's a good thing for the programs. I think it's a good thing for Kybe schools. So I'm really stoked about that. I would also like to acknowledge Emily Robb as the high school head soccer coach who's resigned. And I think the board is aware, since she started, she's gotten married. She has a new baby, not so new anymore. She's now graduated with her teaching credentials. She's gone through a lot of life changes, but I also want to acknowledge that we've done a mistake the last 2 years in girls soccer. that's a really big deal for a program that was in some cases not even being seen as viable for continuation at one point. So for her to make that kind of a turnaround, I think is something we need to mention. And then quite frankly, Barb Thomas, middle school head girls soccer coach. She's been teaching, coaching in this district for many years, retired as a teacher. Is having some medical issues that are she's gonna fly through. It's not a big deal. But she's not gonna be ready to come back. But she's coached in this district for decades. Want to thank her again for her service. So thank you for that.
No, thank you for highlighting that.
That's-
Do we have,
Appreciate it.
do we have planned replacements for those two?
So the plan is we're gonna post the high school position. In fact, I think I just approved it about 15 minutes ago. So that will go out very soon. And then some of what we discussed later in the agenda is gonna make a determination as far as the time frame for filling of the middle school positions. So the short answer would be, yeah, we're gonna have a plan.
And thank you for being here, Ms. Fleming, and your asset to the school. We're really glad to have your expanded role.
I love it.
Congratulations. All right, with that, we'll move on to public comments. We have any electronic? No? Do we have any public comment here this evening? With that, we'll move on to public hearing on the 25-26 budget and the 24-25 budget extension.
So, and if you wouldn't mind calling us into a recess.
So we'll go into a recess for our normal agenda and move into that public hearing.
So Mr. Hassel, as he's getting this ready, we had a successful work session with the board. Had several questions that came out of that discussion, which we have made a few changes to some of the slides and answered some of the questions. And I know some of that will be answered again when we get down into new business item E for program options discussion. Remember, the budget are the guardrails, expected revenue, expected expenditures, and then we can mold and shape what's inside of those boxes as the board desires. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Hassel to take us through this.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. All right, so this is the presentation for fiscal year 24-25 budget extension and the fiscal year 25-26 budget overview. Next slide, please. So for the 24-25 general fund extension proposal and reasoning, our proposed amount for the general fund extension is a flat $1 million to make our total allowed expenditures of $25,197,722. This basically additional capacity will allow us to cover any unexpected expenses. You know, one thing to keep in mind that just because we're asking for this extension doesn't mean we intend on spending it all. We just want to make sure that we have that capacity if something were to arise. And part of the reason for that extension is just a rise in costs, you know, across the board, something we've all experienced. Next slide. So currently, budget expenditures were set at $24,197,722. So far, we've had $23,058,796 in expenses, leaving a capacity of just over $1.1 million. We currently have encumbered expenses of $1,862,674, leaving us under capacity by $723,000 and change. Our average monthly expenditures are just over $2 million. So the difference average for remaining capacity is $957,328. We do expect August to be less expenses than the average, but we're just planning ahead just to make sure that we've got the capacity if it's needed. Next slide. So what this will do basically to our fund balance, if we move forward with the planning spend, we're starting out with $163,313. The projected remaining revenue is $2,444,000 and change. The projected remaining expenditures are $1,975,000, which would leave a projected imbalance of $628,742. or 3.5%, 3.59% of our projected fund balance percentage. Worst case scenario, we spend the entire amount. Basically, it's going to reduce our projected fund balance to $464,816, or 2% of the projected fund balance percentage. Next slide. Are there any questions on this piece? Yes, sir.
In the remaining year, I was just noticing that is not spent. Does that go back to remain in the?
It remains, yes, sir.
There?
Yeah, basically, we're just stating that, we would like to have the ability to spend this money if it's needed. If we didn't spend a dime of it, it just stays exactly where it is.
Now, the other thing that I would throw in there, and it seems like I've done this during previous discussions about extensions, is this does not mean that we do not come back to the board if we were to need to spend that extension, even though you've already authorized it. That would be something if we were to come across any type of major fiscal issue where we needed to spend a significant portion, we'd come back to the board before that ever happened. This is, as I've said before, more of an insurance policy to allow us to spend if needed versus that we're going to.
Any other questions on that piece? Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next slide. There we go. Perfect. So our current enrollment projection for the 25-26 school year is 1,270 students. If you look at the students as they move through the grades through the years, you can see that that's fairly on par from what we've seen for the previous 8-9 years. Okay, next slide. So this enrollment projection versus actual, you can see the differences through the past 8 years, or 9 years, I'm sorry. Last year we projected to have 1286, and the actual average for the year was 1237.78. But from my understanding, that's taken more towards the end of the year. So that variance of -48 is inflated, if you will, because it's slowly changing through the year. So through most of the year, we're closer to perhaps 1286 than we are to 1237. That's just the ending. Next slide. So the summary, our beginning fund balance for our general fund, based on averages of what we might spend for the rest of the year, is 544,056. We have matching revenue and expenditures for this year of $22,589,510. So the plan is zero excess of revenues and expenditures at this moment, leaving an ending fund balance for general of, again, 544,056. ASB is currently at $235,600. They're expecting just under $300,000 in revenue and just over $300,000 in expenses. So basically, they've got an excess of expenditures of $38,745, which is going to leave their ending fund balance at $196,855. Our debt service account is sitting at $280,717. We're expecting revenues of $110,186 and expenditures of $97,188. So an excess of revenue of $12,998 for the ending fund balance, and that account of $293,715. Capital projects is sitting at $7,000, $7,097. We're expecting $103,000 in revenue, $100,000 in expenditures, leaving $3,000 excess revenue to end that fund balance for the year of $10,097. Our transportation beginning fund balance for the 25-26 year is $507,111. We're expecting $150,000 in revenue, $250,000 in expenditures. So in excess of $100,000, not $197,186, and ending fund balance of that of $309,925. Next slide. So just a quick revenue comparison from last year to this year. Last year's revenue in general was expected to be $24,141,000 and change. This year we're looking at $22,589,000 and change. For a difference of $1.5 million less in revenue for the general fund. ASB, the expectation is zero change for the year, sitting at 297,906. Our debt service revenue for last year was 105,000. It's looking like it's going to be 110,186 this year, so an increase of just over $5,000. Capital projects last year was 193,000, where we're looking at 103,000 this year for $90,000 less. Our transportation fund revenue for last year was 120,586. We're expecting roughly $150,000 this year in revenue, for an increase of just over $29,000. On the expenditure side, general fund last year for 24-25 was expected of 24,077,000 and change. This year we expect 22,589,510 for a difference of just under $1.5 million. ASB expenses, expecting this year the same as last year, 336,651 for no change. Debt service last year was expectation of $100,000 expenditures, where we're looking at 97,188 for this year, so a decrease of $2,800. Capital projects, last year's expenditure was expected $190,000. This year's $100,000, so we're expecting a decrease of $90,000. And transportation was $200,000 last year. It's $250,000 this year, so the budget and expectation for that has gone up $50,000. All right, next slide. And this is just a different breakdown, so you can see the percentages. So for the 25-26 general fund revenue breakdown, 891,574 is coming from local taxes. It's roughly 4% of the budget. It's 923,000 and change less than last year, just because of the levy ending in the end of the year, the calendar year. Our local non-tax is $51,000, not even a full percentage point. Our state general purpose revenue is 13,867,443. That makes up 62% of our budget. Our state special purpose is 5,721,448. That's 25%. And then the federal special purpose is 2,057,644, which is about 9%, leaving us for a total revenue of 22,589,509. Next slide. And so basically just a quick overview of what this revenue does. Local property taxes is from our levy. It helps fund things like athletics, other extracurricular activities like music and arts, helps fund facilities and maintenance, safety, training, classroom, technology, as well as nurses and counselors. Our local support non-tax, this essentially comes from testing fees, investment earnings, fines for any damages paid to district property, donations, and then purchases of school food service meals. Our state general purpose is apportionment, and it's our largest revenue service, the largest revenue source, and that's driven from student enrollment. The state special purpose, this money funds special ed, LAP, transitional bilingual, highly capable, as well as our transportation. Our federal special purpose, these are for districts to provide supplemental services needed to assist students with academic needs that may not be met with state and local fundings. These are things like SPED, migrant, Title I. Okay, next slide. And so for an expenditure breakdown based on percentages, our regular instruction is 10,678,519, or 47% of our total expenditure budget. Special ed, 2,577,165, which is going to be roughly 11% of the budget. Vocational education, sitting at $91 million, otherwise going to be 5% of our budget. Compensatory education, 2,319,392, and that is roughly 10% of our expenditure budget. The instructional program is just over 24,000. Again, that's one of those where it's not a full percentage point. Community services, 471,572, and this is 2% of the budget. And then our support services is 5,578,714, and that's going to be covering 25%. Next slide. And then just a quick breakdown of the expenditures. Regular instruction, this basically covers basic ed expenses like salaries, benefits, as well as supplies. Special ed, this is supplemental education services for students identified with special needs. It's pretty much again, salaries, benefits, as well as some supplies. Our vocational education, this allows the students opportunity to build an occupational skill set. In theory, so that when they graduate, they can move right into a career. Money covers materials and teacher salaries as well as benefits. Compensatory education. This is supplemental education programs such as LAP, Title I, and Migrant. Again, salaries and benefits are the cost in here. Instructional programs. This is highly capable salary and benefits. And then community services, because we're a community schools program, this helps pay for operational costs along with salaries and benefits. And lastly, support services. This covers a wide array of salaries and benefits, such as superintendent, business office, pupil management, facility and grounds, transportation, insurance, facility maintenance, utilities, and others. Next slide. So basically, the percentage of our costs are salary and benefits. Our certified salaries are $9,525,000 and change. Classified salaries, $4,331,000 and change. Total benefits, $5,266,000 and change. So the total cost of that is $19,123,000 and $123,015. So if we divide that by our total expected expenditures of $22,589,510, salary and benefits make up almost 85% of our total budget. Next slide. So the MSOC disclosure, basically maintenance, supplies, and operational costs. For regular instruction, we're looking at right at exactly $1.9 million. An additional amount was allocated to grades 9 through 12. In the amount of $85,291. So the total MSOC for that is $1,985,299. So we break this out based on supply, services, travel. For supplies, the total of $390,000. $155,803 is going to our general education. $235,091 is going to district wide. Our Object 7 services, $1.5 million total. $459,532 is going to general education, where just over $1 million is going to district wide. Travel, we've only got $11,551 just because we cut back on a lot of travel, and that's all going to general education. Our capital outlay is $23,103, and that's 100% and district wide. So the total expenditures for these is $1,927,015, or $626,886 for the general fund, or basic education, and $1.3 million for our district wide. Next slide. So the IPD salary increase is 2.5% for the 25-26 school year. The IPD MSOC increase is 2%. And then special education, the funding cap actually increased from 16% to 17.6%. Next slide. So for the 4-year outlook, like I said, the levy funds are ending at the end of the calendar year in December. But we're going to be going back out to have a levy voted on in November of this year to request funding for the next calendar year, which is also the second half of our school year, fiscal year. Next slide. All right. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Well,
I have one that I thought it was excellent, really well.
Okay.
The one thing I would be just in taking a quick review is that that maybe next year we had a little bit of, this is what we spent last year. This is what we're going to spend this year. And it helps someone who is not as daily involved with understand what kind of increases we're looking at.
Okay.
Because I mean, if it's, if it's just cost inflation, I think that's one thing, at least it allows and somebody to say, what is the reason for why that budget went up that much in that specific area.
Okay.
And that gives you one idea of what's there, and then also a little bit of maybe why did
Okay,
the board help you?
yes, sir. I'll add that, thank you.
Well, yeah, just as a reminder, as Pete mentioned earlier, we did have a workshop a week and a half ago, so we've seen this before, so. Benefit here is mostly for the public and put it on display. But one follow-up question I had, and it's quite fine if you don't have this number offhand, but on the salaries and benefits percentage being just shy of 85%, how is that compared to our historical type percentages as well as the state average? I know we're in range, it's usually low 80s, but we're a little higher than normal. Where do we compare to state average?
It's an excellent question and analysis I'm gonna do.
Okay,
Yes.
so the ballpark fine. Like,
Well, it's funny that you
I know
mentioned
it's
that.
usually low 80s, but
Yeah, we have tried to get it down. To the 82, 83 range, that's really kind of our sweet spot. In fact, one of the things I'll mention later in my superintendent's report was I made a comment to a community group that in my 8 years as superintendent, we've been as high as 87% and as low as 81. And that I think has a tendency to move more in a district our size. Because when you get 4, 5, 6 top tier people leaving in 1 year, you can really take a nosedive. I remember this same conversation 2 years ago. Drew was very proud of the fact that we had dropped it, I think it was to 82.5. And quite frankly, he and I both realized at the time, we had a specific set of people who were retiring at that time, the previous year. Our goal in my worldview should be 84% at a max. That's where I'd like to see it. 84.65 is pretty close. If we can keep it under 85, I'm very, very comfortable.
So it was last year that Drew was very excited because it was 82.4%.
There you go. Yep.
all right. Well, yeah, again, thank you, John and Mona in particular, on all the work on this, and I know especially when we're looking for areas to cut, that's not the fun part of the job. So appreciate it. All that. Any other comments or questions?
Any comments from anyone in the audience?
Public hearing. So,
It's a
yeah.
public hearing, so.
What would be, like, I think it was around, the levy amount was like 891, something like that. Does that sound right? The dollars collected from the levy, 891K.
It's roughly, when you take into account the levy and levy equalization that comes from the state, other things that are based on the levy vote, it's actually almost exactly what our reduction in our general fund is, the $1.5 million total.
Okay.
Because that was really the target that we had, was to lower our budget the same amount if we were not to be successful in November.
Is that like the last, we lived here 7 years, are the last like 4 or 5 levy requests or votes been about approximately the same amount of money, or is it slight increases, or what do you?
They have all been based on the state minimum for us to get maximum levy equalization.
Okay.
Which is $1.50. That's what we always project. And one of the slides from a different presentation, quite frankly, that you'll find is that even though every year we have projected out the amount for the $1.50 to get us the maximum in levy equalization, because property taxes and property assessed values have been going up so quickly, we actually haven't reached that.
Right.
So the last time that we went out at $1.50, the actual collection was $1.43.5. So even though we're trying to project, it's a very uncomfortable feeling for the board, especially knowing full well that if we go out at $1.50, we probably won't collect it. But at the same time, to go out and ask for an increase probably loses us more votes than not collecting the full amount, quite frankly. So it's a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah.
I can completely, I think I would be very safe in saying, if the board chooses to put out our levy in November, as I think they will, at $1.50, I think we could probably collect no more than $1.45. But I also have been hearing rumors that the assessed values are dropping in the coming year, which would be a major shift from anything we've seen over the past 5. So, but yeah, long story short, we try to keep it to the minimum that we can. The dollar amount always increases, but the overall tax burden on the individual taxpayer for the local school levies does not.
Is the $1.50 is used in a calculation to determine the total amount of funds that we'll collect. So then as the property values change, that
Yeah,
rate
that's where the
yeah.
conundrum comes with people.
Yep.
They aren't collecting anymore, their assessed values going up, so.
I think that the money for the property tax goes up for the school too, but it doesn't. It's actually the amount for the total amount collected is still the same.
Right.
It actually is less for the property owner whose property goes up.
Yeah, which is all good arguments for levy 4.
Yep.
So.
But it's also contrary to, quite frankly, it's not logical if you're just in that conversation. It doesn't seem, what do you mean it goes down? It can't go. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's a conundrum.
It is. It's hard to explain. It's more of a on paper. It's a little better to explain.
And I think outside of Patterson, we're the low, am I correct in that we're the lowest levy rate?
Absolutely.
And I don't know what those rates are in Kennewick and Richland, but well north of $2, right?
Richland's 386.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's again, state issue with large districts versus small districts. So.
Yep.
All right, any other comments or questions on budget or budget extension? All right, with that, we'll end the public hearing on the 25-26 budget and the 24-25 budget extension. We will return from recess back to our agenda on the regular board meeting. And with that, we'll start new business, item 8A, resolution 5/2025, 24-25 budget extension. Mr. Hassel.
So we've gone over the different numbers for the budget extension. So I am hoping that the board will approve the budget extension.
Any comments or questions on that?
The extension doesn't change the amount, it's just extending the period of time.
No, basically just asking for an extension on how much we can spend. We don't intend to spend all of it. But as it stands, the budget doesn't have enough capacity inside of it to pay off everything for August. So we're basically just asking for last year's budget to be increased some to make sure that we can pay anything that might come along.
Authorizing an additional $1 million to spend if needed.
Yes, sir.
And just a reminder, Mr. Skipper, that we'll need a roll call for the next few items.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I will second. Aye.
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 And now we'll move on to item 8B, resolution 6, 2025, 25-26 budget. Mr. Hassel.
Yes, sir. We just went over the presentation for the budget. So I would ask the board to also approve the proposed 25-26 budget.
The motion.
I will second.
All right. Now on to item 8C, resolution 7, 2025, the educational programs and operational replacement levy. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you very much. As the board is aware, we've been having ongoing discussions about running our educational program and operations levy for a second time. This is the same dollar amount, the same details in the resolution that would allow us to go ahead and put this on the November election. Just as we were discussing in the open public hearing regarding budget, this is at approximately $1.50 per $1,000 of assessed value. And the total numbers requested $2.367 million for the 2025 fiscal year, and collection 26-27 at $2.545 million. Again, same figures that we had when we were unsuccessful last spring. This will need to be approved by the board, and then we submit it no later than August 5th with board approval to get us on the ballot for November. I would recommend to the board that we go ahead and approve this. I think we will be in a much better position to make good on our efforts, given this much time ahead that we're going to have. And we've already gotten some commitments from various community members who want to be involved in this. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and approve this, and we'll get it to the county. And then we'll make a plan and get this levy passed.
Yeah, well, I just want to note, I don't think it's lost on the board or the staff that obviously several months ago, we approached the public seeking the levy, and the answer was no. But we're not just coming back searching for votes at a different time and expecting a different electorate to show up because it's a November election and maybe more people will vote, and maybe we'll get our way. It's not the approach that we've taken. You can see in the budget that was created, as well as the actions that the staff has taken over the past several months, as documented in the various meetings that we've had, that we have cut where we could. We've reduced. I think we've looked under every rock that there is to find areas to cut expenditures so that we're being fiscally responsible. And especially when you look at some of the headlines around other areas in our vicinity and our neighboring school districts, some of the troubles that they're having, as well as what's happening on the federal level with seesaw and the funding availability there, that we've been very proactive and in our approach here. So it's not just throwing another election at the wall and seeing what sticks. We've definitely, I think, done the work to prove that we're spending what we said we were going to spend, and then cutting everywhere that we can. So breathe. Any other comments or questions on the levy?
Well, I'm just gonna say one thing about it. Somebody mentioned to me about a month ago, and it actually made me think about it considerably, is that one thing about the levy dollars is that it's something that comes from the community that we can directly see the impact to our school versus state dollars that get taken for our community and go to the state and then they redistribute them. Levy dollars are something that our community votes in for it, and they can see the direct impact of the school and how that specifically helps or hurts our kids. So you know, something I thought about a little bit more and, I hope that, you know, come November that it's something that our community thinks about as far as, you know, supporting our school and our kids.
Yeah, and the piggyback on that, it's really the only dollars that we receive that come with zero strings other than the promises we make to the community for how we're gonna spend their money. Anyway, so granted, like, we live here as well, there are tax dollars, I think we're all taxed enough, but this is one area where it's truly dollars that the school district is able to use directly to impact the students. And the only people that are responsible for figuring out how to spend that are right in front of everyone here, and they can come back and come to the school any time if they're on now.
I think that's real important. Because in past years, that I'm sure you have let the public know, here's what the cost is. And there's some reason as to why. And I think it's real important if you have a budget increase in an area, that it's important to show the voters out there that while there was an increase, here's what caused that increase. And then it gets to be more real to them as opposed to, well, they're asking you this amount and you know.
All right. With those speeches, Lloyd, I'll entertain a motion on M8C.
I will motion for the education program operations replacement levy.
All right, with that, we'll move on to item 8D, Benton County LOA. Mr. Hassel.
Thank you very much. So back in the end of June or early July, our account with Benton County went negative. And so we discussed our plans on what we were planning to do to get back in the positive as well, to try to ensure that that did not happen again. Which they were fine with. However, they wanted to bring to the board a document stating, so the board would be aware that we had gone negative. And that we will be charged some interest, essentially as of today, once the document is completely signed. However, the apportionment should have actually hit our account of Benton County Treasurer by now. So we should already be back in, I guess, to me, this is more of a formality, just to make sure that the board is aware what did happen. You know, so that everybody is fully transparent.
So is there no retroactive interest then?
No, it's not, from my understanding, because even in the document, it says interest rate charge to the district will be locked in and effective July 28th, 2025, the date they're signed. And so for the way I'm reading it, if we're already out of the negative, we should be fine.
Yeah. If we can confirm that, and then obviously, I mean, we owe the county what we owe them, but it'd be interesting to know that number, just that's be sure.
One of the things I would like to make a matter of public record, specifically with regards to County Treasurer Spencer and his office. Mr. Spencer and his office have been extraordinarily helpful and accommodating, and not simply with us. We quite frankly are on the lower end of the totem pole. This is, as so many things fiscally related in schools now, we are not the only district that is facing these types of challenges, and we're not the only district who have gone above and beyond what their account balance showed. I know, and this is not to degrade anyone, but I know they're working directly with Prosser, with Mapton, with larger school districts in the county as well for exactly the same reason. And the reason I'm calling out Treasurer Spencer is quite frankly because not all counties are doing as good a job as Benton County is at working with what they know to be the limitations of the state fiscal system. And they have really stepped up for education, big E across the board in the county to help out all districts. And I want that to be noted, Because I'm hearing horror stories about some county school relationships around the state right now. It's not pretty. And so I'm very proud of the fact that our county is taking care of us and other districts as well.
Should we send a letter to the county along that line?
I think that would be very appropriate. Yes, thank you, Ken.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. Appreciate it. Mr. Spence from his office. With that, I'll entertain a motion for the county LOA.
That county away.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, with that, move on to item 8E, program options. Mr. Peterson.
So, thank you. And now that we have our guardrails in place for our projected budget for 25-26, one of the things that I want to make sure that we have some discussion about is, you know, the district implemented a hiring freeze early last spring with regards to any outside hiring. And at this point, with the budget that was just passed, we're really looking at short-term fixes for long-term financial viability. So one of the things I want to make sure the board is aware of that as we have some open positions, which we do, we will be shifting folks around for reassignment. But only our folks that are currently under contract would be impacted. Now, we had one resignation from the one person that we had hired from outside the district in our high school life skills. We will be, in fact, it already has been reposted because that is a special certification and a special job, quite frankly, that we don't have someone currently under contract who's ready to step into that type of program. So we will still go outside for that one replacement. But in the short term, what we're looking at is potentially impacting areas that are grant funded. So whether that's our RTI program or our intervention program that's usually paid for with title funds, or our bilingual program interventions, which are paid for through bilingual and to a lesser degree, some of the migrant funding that was just released by the federal government late Friday. We may be moving some of those people out of intervention programs to put back into the classroom on a short-term basis to get us through to when we have a better idea of some long-term financial options. I put out a message to the entire staff today. I copied the board on it. I fully expect that the migrant Title III funds that were released today, that this will be the last time we see them. So therefore, while it is nice to have some knowledge that we're going to see that funding, it doesn't change the fact that we're going to spend as little of it as possible because it's one time. We certainly aren't going to go out and hire a bunch of new people based on funding that's going to go away at the end of next year. And I fully anticipate it will. So this is mainly just to get that out there. We also had some discussions regarding middle school sports and whether or not we can afford to keep those. And one of the questions that came up was, could we still fund fall sports prior to the levy passing or not passing? Mona and John ran the numbers today. So we're at approximately $45,000 for fall middle school sports to be able to run as normal. As the board is aware, those were funds that we had set aside in order to make sure we had a balanced budget for the board. But now that the guardrails have been set, we can move some things around within that. The $45,000, the way that is accounted for is roughly $20,000 for salary of coaches, another $5,000 on top of that for benefits, because there are obviously benefits that we have to pay along with it. About $6,000 for referee costs, officials costs, for volleyball. Football, things like that. Then we would have to find someone who would be available to act as the administrator for the middle school. Athletics program, much as we have done with Keithon at the high school level. His release is for the high school. And so we would need to find some way to accommodate that same thing, at least for the first season. At the middle school level, so we're accounting for about $3,500 there. And then roughly $10,000 of miscellaneous expenses, whether it be supplies, things like that. Now, transportation, we've already discussed that we would be cutting back on our extracurricular transportation this year due to the levy not passing. And that was a huge expense that we could envelop out of our budget from the get-go and would save us, make things not as convenient for our kids, but quite frankly, when you're talking about a bus that we send every day out to pick up kids, we spend $1 per mile per bus. So when we talk about traveling to Wahluke, when we talk about traveling to Walla Walla, $1 a mile a bus, things add up very quickly. So we would be able to, though, fund the everything except the transportation for around $45,000. And that's on the high end, but I think you know me well enough to know now I'm going to try to give you the high end each time. So there aren't any surprises. So all things being equal, if that is something that the board would like to see, we can move forward with that. If it's something that you want to have further discussion about, I know that Teddy, even though she's not here, was adamant that she feels that we continue to offer middle school sports until, quite frankly, the voters tell us no. And at $45,000, let's just, worst case scenario, if that were to come out of the ending fund balance, it would drop our ending fund balance. I believe the number was about 540 some thousand down to 500,000. So it would not make or break the district by having to fund that. But obviously, I'm going to be looking for other ways to come up with those funds than simply taking out a fund balance.
Yeah, obviously there are cash flow considerations beyond just where we end up.
Correct.
But yeah, given the fact that our prior levy was passed through the end of this year and with the intention to fund those sports, I'm certainly supportive of it. I know we have costs that have risen and there's other reasons why we're in a cash crunch, but I don't think I need to restate my support of youth sports and everything that the benefits that come from that. So I'll just echo that I think it's really important that we keep that.
Yeah, I think it is for that reason. Also, I think it helps maintain interest of the young people in that, hey, even if they're not participating in it, at least perhaps maybe they're watching it or hearing about it or talking about it. It's real positive to young people of, oh, we do this and we do that. And that's what's real important is that positive, school is fun because at that younger age, it's going to be hard sometimes to have them say, yeah, school is really great to go study and do. That's, it's more of, it adds more life to it. So I think it's real important.
I think from the board standpoint, and this is someplace that I have, depending on your point of view, I've either grown as an administrator or I've turned darker in my thinking. I also don't think that we are in a position for us to say, well, we know you want that as a community, so we'll find other ways to fund it. I think that also sends the wrong message. And so when Teddy brought this up, while I was understanding and initially actually less understanding than I am right now. I also think that this is, to come back to Gina's point, kind of one of those, this is what we're doing with the money that has been approved up until you don't approve it. But when you don't approve it, then we have no choice. These are the ramifications, and this is what it will be moving forward. And I think that's a fair statement to make. And like Gina said, if you want to see what your money will do, we will know on November 6th. Absolutely.
All right. Any other comments or questions under program operations? Excuse me, program options?
So one thing I just want to clarify when it comes to middle school, we're looking at just one team, correct? Just the A team, not A, B, C, not multiple teams per sport.
We're looking at the minimum contractual requirements that we have. So we would not be looking at adding additional coaches. I think we have a minimum of 2 coaches per sport. So that's what we would be looking at.
Okay.
Nothing else? We'll move on to item 8F, levy committee pro con approval. Mr. Peterson.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Skipper. We have actually not done this, and we're supposed to. But I also know we're not the only ones. So one of the things that we need to do is we will be filling out a form with the county and letting them know who has requested and then or approved to act on behalf of a for committee, a pro committee and a con committee for the district with regards to the levy. So with that, we do not have anyone who has asked to be on the con committee. And we have Mike Peterson, who's here tonight, who did graciously reach out and show interest in being in the pro side of the committee. One of the questions I have before we get too deep into the weeds, quite frankly, I have reached out to WASDA, that's the School Directors Association, because I don't know specifically what the limits are, if any, regarding being a chair, or I know you can be a member of the pro committee, but I don't believe you can act as the chair at the same election where you are technically running at the same time as the levy itself is running. So I'm going to get clarification on that. But Mike has volunteered to be on the group, and we appreciate that very much. So with that in mind, what I would ask is that the board simply approve Dale Thornton, who has volunteered, at least in name, to act as the chair for the pro committee, meaning he would be responsible for getting the folks involved to write the statement. Dale, as you know, is taking on a lot of family obligations right now with his farm, his brother's farm, his mom's farm. He's got a lot of things going. So the more people, the merrier. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that Mike has volunteered to work on the committee. Even if Dale isn't as active as he has been in the past, I know that we have some folks who have volunteered already, including Mike and others who are going to take that. But what I do want to be able to do is to send the county notice that Dale Thornton, as chair with others to be named later, will act as the pro committee.
Okay, just a couple of questions on that.
Yep.
So is there a deadline for us to submit these names?
August 5th.
August 5th.
Same as the resolution.
Yeah.
Thank you. The resolution that you just approved.
So given the fact, and just in the name of fairness, given the fact that we just passed the levy approval, do we need to allow some time for the con to
So we have put it out,
Yeah,
we put it out last week on social media, on our website. For both
Okay.
pro and con.
got it, okay, all right, that's fair then. Good.
So all I would ask is for, we do not need a roll call on this, but just approval for me to go ahead and sign off on that form with the county.
Make me say it.
Well,
Entertain a
what
motion.
was it was,
The levy committee pro con.
Okay.
You're supposed to update your agenda when.
I didn't have a pen. I have to, okay, here. Here,
Are you finished?
sure, thanks. I motion to approve the levy committee pro con.
Thank you, Chief.
Second.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Trying to keep Robert's rules of order here, so. All in favor? Aye. Yeah. Okay. You're gonna miss me, aren't you, Heidi?
Sure am.
All right, with that, we'll move on to board comments. I feel like we've all spoken enough tonight, but.
You have one.
Right. Well, see the floor to you. Board comments?
Thank you for always being so comfortable in our meetings, Josh.
Please note that in minutes.
Yes.
Oh,
All right, with nothing further, we'll move on to superintendent's report.
And just real briefly, because I promised I would mention this. Josh and I have been at now two, I guess, Republican Party county meetings in past years. And last Thursday night, I actually was invited and presented at the Benton County Democrats meeting. So it was what I presented to them, because their focus really was on what are the current state of finances in Coyote Bend City, and then the bigger picture of state impacts, federal impacts, which of course have changed now since even that meeting took place. They asked good questions. It was fairly nonpartisan, I have to admit. In quite frankly, the same manner that when we presented at the last Republicans committee, it was fairly nonpartisan as well. I mean, this is school finance is still one of the areas where it is, regardless of what people want to make it, it is a nonpartisan endeavor, in my opinion, and maybe my head is still in the clouds, but partisan politics did not play a part in the fact that I think all parties, and independents for that matter, realize that our school fiscal system is broken. If anything, it's two sides of the same coin. I think when I'm discussing now the Republican and the Democratic county apparatus that's currently going on. Neither one of them are bad, and they both have the best interests of the county at heart in their own way. And I really do respect that. As a history major and a firm believer in the democratic process, I think schools are in a better position now than ever to play that nonpartisan role. And I hope that it's something that we can continue, even if those around us are burning. I really do like the fact that we're still in that warm spot, not right in the middle. So it was a good experience. Nothing shocking. They were very impressed, I must say, the folks that I was speaking to, with the level of detail that, because I went right down the list of our budget cuts and why we were making budget cuts and what the state implications were for these budget cuts and why they were very impressed with the level of detail that the district was doing to ensure that we stay fiscally solvent. And I said, now more so than ever, and as a former English teacher to say this, I spend much more of my time making sure that we're fiscally responsible than I ever do about making sure that we're teaching 5-paragraph essays correctly. Which is not the way that I ever really saw this position coming into it, but I know that's the reality of it now. It was also heartening to hear a response from some folks that said, gosh, you guys are, a lot better shape than when we heard from Richland a couple of weeks ago. Thank you for making my point for me. With that, it was a good experience, and it means my message to them was stay engaged regardless of what political affiliation you have. Stay engaged with the process, but more importantly, stay engaged with your schools. Because there are ways that you can have a positive outcome simply by that level of engagement. And that went over pretty well. So it was good. I was glad. And I got to be honest, I went in thinking I was going to be there for 15-20 minutes, and an hour and 45 minutes later, I left. So they asked good questions. They asked some hard questions, but they were good. So with that, that's my report.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All right, with that, we'll move into executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, section 1G, performance of a public employee for 30 minutes with no follow up.
Yep, 11:30.
Thanks, guys. See you, Kenny.